And then there were four. The college football playoff semifinal round is here. It gets kicked off on Thursday night with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions, followed by a Friday evening matchup between our Ohio State Buckeyes and the Texas Longhorns. We dive deep into both matchups tonight on the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast. Anthony Moeglin here tonight, running a solo show, and we'll keep it on the quicker side of things tonight as we take a little whip-around look at the college football playoff. The semifinals are finally here, and when you kind of peel back the onion a little bit, peel back the curtain, and you take a look at the college football playoff as a whole, we've talked about it a number of times on this show, and I'm sure every single show that you listen to and you've heard over the past few weeks has mentioned that, hey, the college football playoff isn't perfect. It's not a perfect system, and there's certainly some tweaks that need to happen, and I think will easily happen in the coming years. But for now, when you look at these Final Four teams, with it being Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Penn State, you have four really worthy programs to be representing college football in their last four, and four programs that I think, given the right day, given the right circumstances, all have a chance to win the college football playoff and go home as the national champion. And like I said, yes, I think that the playoff will be improved, the seeding will be improved, the selection will all be improved. But what all shook out were four teams that proved it on the field. They earned their way there. They earned their way to the semifinals. They weren't selected by a committee. Yeah, certainly they had to get in. But you look at every one of their seeds, and we'll get into it here in a little bit. These were all lower seeds. All four of these teams would have been out of the playoffs had there just been a 14 playoff. And where your argument really happened, right? When you're talking about last year, let's rewind 12 months, and you're looking at the 14 playoff. The margin that you were arguing on is, hey, teams 5, 6, 7, and 8 didn't get in. All teams that potentially could be national champions. Now this year, you're arguing about teams 13, 14, 15, and 16. So you're looking at from that perspective, you're like, hey, looks like that the teams you were arguing about, you talk about Ole Miss, you talk about South Carolina, you talk about Alabama, probably weren't going to factor in to this Final Four, weren't going to factor in to this national championship conversation. And the teams that survive, the teams that did, are certainly for the best that college football has to offer. So as we break it in, or as we get into what this Final Four looks like, I pull it up here, the college football playoff bracket given to us here by ESPN. And starting in the top right corner, obviously you got Notre Dame coming out of that region, if you will, if I'm talking in March Madness terms, right? That upper region where they played Indiana as the very first game of the college football playoff a few weeks back. And they got after Indiana pretty good in what felt like an old school crosstown rivalry between two high schools that were storied programs. It was a really awesome environment, one that was the perfect way for the college football playoff to get started. And then in their biggest test yet against the Georgia Bulldogs, they took care of business. Now, Georgia was shorthanded. They didn't have Carson Beck for sure, and Notre Dame was able to take advantage of it. I wouldn't say Notre Dame played a particularly great game, right? They threw it for less than 100 yards, had just about 200 yards of total offense, and they've been built on the run. This team is the foundation of that team is built on the ground, and it proved out to work against the Dogs last week. And obviously there were some extenuating circumstances with the terrorist attacks and all that stuff. So that was a weird environment, but Notre Dame was able to withstand it all and get out of New Orleans with a huge victory to place them into the semifinal from that top bracket. And then that bottom right corner, you look at Penn State. The conversation surrounding the Nittany Lions has been really interesting, right? This is a team that lost in the Big Ten championship game. They got beat by Oregon. They played Oregon fairly tough, probably the toughest that anyone's played Oregon outside of Ohio State twice. And actually could throw Boise State into that mix. But Penn State loses that game, has 2 losses on the year, 1 to Ohio State and now 1 to Oregon. And they get seeded 6th in the country, but turns out they have the best, I shouldn't say easiest, but the path of least resistance, if you will. So they take on SMU in a game that was over right after the opening kickoff. They have 2 pick sixes in that game, and they just absolutely dominated the Mustangs from Southern Methodist. And then their next opponent was the Boise State, and Boise State tried to make that a game, but in the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State proved to be too much. They travel cross country, and they take down the Boise State Broncos there to punch their ticket to the college football playoff semifinal. Now on our side of the bracket, we'll start in the bottom here looking at the Texas Longhorns. They got things started as the 5-12 matchup, right? This is one where you think about it in basketball terms, there's always a 12 that beats a 5. But in this year, in the football bracket, was not to be the case. Clemson did give Texas their best shot and had an opportunity with a goal-to-go scenario to tie the football game, which they did not get. And Texas was able to get out of Dodge, get out of Austin with a nice victory to then go take on Cam Scadaboo and the Arizona State Sun Devils, where this game was awesome, right? Texas gets out to a massive lead, and it looks like they're going to roll through Arizona State on their way to take on the winner of Ohio State versus Oregon. But the Sun Devils had other things in mind, other plans in mind. As they fought back, Cam Scadaboo was incredible in that second half. He threw for a touchdown, caught a huge ball at the sidelines, ran for $140, and really just tried to will that Arizona State team back to victory. And they had it in the grasp of their hands, man. They really had the victory at their fingertips. But a 4th and 10 where Kenny Dillingham decided to blitz the house instead of dropping in coverage. And when he blitzed the house, Quinn Ewers stood in the pocket and delivered a touchdown pass. They score then in the next overtime, and then the rest is really history. They get out of there with the victory to punch their ticket. So they had a little bit more of a rocky path to get to the semifinal, but they did punch their ticket in, and they are one of the Final 4. And now our bracket, our quadrant of this bracket. Ohio State takes on Tennessee at home a few weeks back in one of the coolest environments you'll ever be in. Tennessee, to their credit, traveled incredibly well up north, brought everything that Ohio State wanted to handle, and the Buckeyes handled it with flying colors. They get out really, really fast, have a bunch of big plays early in the game, and frankly, the game was over in the first quarter, and that seems to be the theme of this Buckeyes team, because they jumped on the gas pedal and they did not let off of it for the entirety of the football game. So they take care of business against Tennessee. Then they head out to the Granddaddy of them all. They go out west to the Rose Bowl to take on the Oregon Ducks, a team that beat them by 1. And the Buckeyes had revenge on their mind, and they wasted no time at all. They go on 2 huge scoring drives to start the football game. They're up 14-0 before it was even 5:30 p.m. Eastern. The game was pretty much all the way over by the time that you got settled into your seats, because not only did they go up 14-0, but then they go up 17-0, and then they hit a bomb to go up 24-0, and then Travion Henderson goes 66 yards to the house to go up 31-0, and that all happened before halftime. So these Buckeyes have proven that that they're here to stay, and they have an incredible sense to them right now. They have an incredible fight to them, and they're trying to prove a ton of people wrong, which is really exciting. So after all of those paths to get to the Final 4, you have your Final 4 remaining. And that first game is going to take place on Thursday night between the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish down in Miami. And this one's got a lot of intrigue to it, because it's 2 programs that historically have had trouble in the big game, whatever that big game was, whether it's Penn State trying to take on Ohio State every year, whether it's Penn State trying to beat Michigan, whether it's Notre Dame trying to beat Alabama, or Notre Dame trying to beat pretty much anybody outside of USC in any big environment, especially in the last 20 years. It hasn't gone the Irish's way, the same as it hasn't gone the way of the Nittany Lions. And this game is going to feature two offenses, 2 programs that I think are run a little similarly, right? Where we look at Penn State, Drew Aller obviously has all the tools to be the next good NFL quarterback, but it hasn't really come together in every way. He hasn't clicked on all cylinders quite to this point, but that team is built on the run. It's built on having a good, strong run game and a pro-style attack where they're going to be under center. They're going to use play action. They're going to try to take shots over top of you, but they're going to need precision out of their quarterback to be successful. And then on the other side of things for Notre Dame, that group is absolutely built on the run. Riley Leonard is a run first kind of a quarterback. Not that he's scared to throw it, but he's just not the best thrower of the football. And what he does really, really well is he can attack you on the ground. And him paired with a number of great running backs. Jeremiah Love being a name that's always involved. However, he's going to be injured. And then for Penn State, Abdul Carter's coming off an injury. So what is he going to look like? Is he going to be a full 100%? It's going to be really interesting down in Miami for that one. But in my opinion, that game is a battle for second place because the winner of that one is going to get the gift of taking on the winner of Ohio State versus Texas. And yes, Ohio State and Texas are two of the major brands in all of college football. And it's two groups and two teams that really, I don't know that hate's the right word, but two fan bases that think of them, that are very similar, think that their team is always the best and could probably have an argument most years. But this year they get to finally fight it out on the field. And as much as I want this game to be close, I really do think, and this is me trying to take off the homer, this is me trying to take off the scarlet and gray glasses, this is me trying to be very unbiased in this situation, but I really do think this has the potential to be a very similar feel to what we experienced at Oregon and what we experienced against Tennessee, because this Texas team feels like a lot of fool's gold to me right now. They've given up a ton of yards. Cade Klubnik from Clemson threw for 340 on them, 336 on them. The Arizona State Sun Devils ran for over 150 yards on these guys. They've been known to be very vulnerable, and they also are known to give up leads. In both their games, they've gotten out big, and they've let the other team kind of creep back in. The unfortunate part for them is they're not going to have the luxury of getting out early against Ohio State. Ohio State is too good to surrender any momentum early in a football game because they just keep coming with you in waves. They come at you in waves, whether it's through the air to Jeremiah Smith or Emeka, or whether it's on the ground to Travion or Quinshon, whether it's the defense making huge plays. Always, they are too darn good to be giving up early points to get down early, because there is no coming back on these Buckeyes. So I think Texas is going to be fighting an uphill battle, and I think the Buckeyes are going to be rolling into the national title game. So you came to this show tonight for a little picks and preview. There was the preview part of it. The picks part of this discussion will go as such. We'll start on our side of the bracket. Like I said, I think Ohio State has an opportunity to absolutely roll these guys. I think Texas is very good. I think they have good players everywhere. I just think that they haven't put it together as a team that can compete with the A version of Ohio State, which through the last two games is what we've gotten. Now, if that team that played Michigan rolls out of the tunnel, totally different story. But I expect that team that comes out of the tunnel down in Arlington, Texas, to be the one that's really similar to what we saw against Oregon. And for that, and because of that, I think Ohio State wins big. My score, I'm still kind of working on it, but I think it's in the 38 point range for the Buckeyes. And I think for Texas, you're looking at like 17. So 38-17 is how I'm going to go with this one. And I think it'll be a great day to be a Buckeye. On the other side, I think this one's going to be interesting, right? Notre Dame and Penn State, a battle of two programs that kind of mirror each other in certain ways. They play great defense. They want to establish the run on offense. I think it's going to be a very pro-looking game. I think it's going to look like an NFL game where there's a handful of punts and field positions important, and special teams are going to win you the football game. And because of that, I think it'll be low scoring. But if my intuition is right and what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking is correct, I think that Notre Dame squeaks out a really, really close game. I got it going 24-21. Notre Dame beats Penn State and punches there, take it down to Atlanta to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes in a matchup which it would be unbelievable for the very first 12-team playoff. You get Ohio State versus Notre Dame for all the marbles, for all of it. I think that it'd be everything that college football fans want, and I think that it would be an unbelievable environment down in Atlanta if those two things go that way. If there's any other combination of teams, if I'm wrong on either side, if I'm wrong on both sides, I think whatever the national championship game is after this semifinal, I think you're going to be in for an awesome national title. So the ball is getting kicked off here and just over 48 hours down in Miami. Remember, that game's on Thursday night between Notre Dame and Penn State. So don't forget about it. And then 24 hours after that, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Texas Longhorns teeing that thing up and putting a bow on this awesome college football bracket to this point. So until then, over on our site here, Ohio State Buckeyes on SI on YouTube, we're going to have you covered with a ton of content. So after tonight, we'll be back with you tomorrow with a defensive preview. The last night, we did an offensive show where we looked at Ohio State's offense versus the Texas defense. We're going to flip that thing over. We're going to look at the Texas offense and Quinn Ewers versus Cody Simon, Caleb Downs, and the Ohio State Buckeye defense there. So excited about that. There's a lot of cool matchups to get into when you look at those two units. And then on Thursday, we've had a little bit of change in plans. We're going to be staying put here in Ohio as obviously there's a massive storm that's going to be hitting the southern part of the United States. They're expecting 12 to 15 inches of snow in Texas. So we're going to be staying put here at home base. So we'll have content for you on Thursday, either before or after the Notre Dame Penn State game. And then we'll have it filled with content on Friday pregame, both here on the YouTube channel, also on Twitter, on our Twitter page. So follow us on Twitter. And then also over on our website, si.com/college/Ohio State. So that's how you can find us. Please, if you're here, subscribe. If you're on Twitter, please like it. If you're jumping over to our SI page, awesome. Please keep reading because our team's working really hard to make sure you stay up to date on the Ohio State Buckeyes. So settle in on Thursday night. Enjoy what's an incredible sports weekend, an incredible football weekend. It kicks off actually Wednesday. If you're a Clevelander, if you're in Northeast Ohio, you got Cavs versus the Thunder on Wednesday. Then you got the first playoff game on Thursday. You got the second playoff game on Friday. You got the first two NFL first-round games on Saturday. You got the next three NFL games on Sunday. Then you got one more on Monday night. It's a mouthful. I hope you can hear my excitement because it's going to be an awesome football weekend, and we'll be here right along with you. So appreciate you jumping in here tonight, and we'll be back later with some more content here on the Ohio State Buckeyes on SI YouTube channel.